All right, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Lines. As you know, a podcast by our organization, Lines of Liberty. As you know, we are dedicated to supporting veterans, first responders by offering fishing events, trips, outdoor adventures as an outlet for mental health or that nasty PTSD for a moment to recharge. My name's Captain Gene Hammond, and I'm I'm excited about this one today. But as you know, Mike usually does these intros, but Mike is on location. Tell us what you're doing, Mikey.
Well, the team had to split forces today, so we
Right,
got the good-looking part of Lines of Liberty over there. We got jingles on to make sure we look nice, right?
that's right.
And Dad and I are down here at an event called at OCC in Clearwater for Honor Flight. You recall a couple of weeks ago, we did a podcast with Honor Flight, that amazing service that they do where they bring the veterans from the past wars up to see the memorial. So they invited us to join them. We're giving away a inshore fishing trip. They're doing the raffle right now. We got to meet a lot of great people. I have so much to tell the team about. We had some signups today, which was great, but we made some great connections, and maybe guys, our first grant writer who's willing just to help us flat. So so
That would
we,
be
we
incredible.
definitely have a chance to make some strides forward. And look at this team, man. We're split up. We're in two locations, and we're just rocking it out. Couldn't be prouder to be part of the team. Tyson, I wish I could be there. I love what you're doing. I got to read a lot of your material. But Scott and Gino from Jingles will take good care of you. And I think if I stay too much longer, it's going to get super loud, boys and
Yeah,
girls. So
yeah. Tell the bearded brothers band we say hello. I wish I
I
could
will.
be there. And again, Mikey, thank you for all your efforts, man. This
All
is a
right,
good
guys. Much
one.
love. We'll catch up to you later.
Yep.
All right, good. Yeah,
Thanks
Mike.
for the report. Good stuff there.
So,
Well,
so
tonight,
Gino,
yeah.
who we talking to tonight?
Tonight we have Mr. Tyson Kilmer from TKT Powerbreeds, and this one to me is extremely interesting to me because I am signed up to get a service animal. I haven't done it yet, but just talking with Tyson, who's a contact of Jingles here. I This stuff is very interesting to me and how it can help and how it does help veterans and service members because throughout these events that we have been to, there's always a one of those Belgian like German Shepherd looking Malinois doing demos at, and those dogs just are extremely amazing to me. How obedient they are, how they listen to commands. This is what this guy does, and he does it at an extremely high level. So hey, Tyson, tell us who you are, man.
First off, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. You guys, all of you, so much for your service and everything you guys do for this country and people who really, require and deserve the time and effort. We really appreciate you. So it's great to be here. Yeah. So I got into this dog thing, decades ago. 30 years ago, and I came into this from a perspective of an animal communicator who was a young guy that was really interested in making, I wanted to make my mark in the world and show people, you
Yeah,
know, the capability. That's years and decades. It's kind of morphed into some other stuff, like we
yeah,
begin a company, you start working, we figure out if our techniques or how important our techniques are and how they work and how effective they are. And then we get to sit down as we grow and mature a little bit and think about how we want to utilize our skills and tools moving forward in ways that they can be the most effective and helpful. And that's what's kind of brought me full circle uh, from to add these types of uh, how should I say, these types of categories to the work that I was already doing, not
yeah,
just training dogs or rehabilitating or dogs, but now saying, listen, let's take these training skills and move them forward to be able to work with demographics of people in need and really be there to help them. So the first thing that I would say, the first thing that I learned about this, just in the practice of it, um, was that like after like breaking this down to the lowest common denominator and really taking
Yeah.
a deep look at what the need is out there, is that really, to be honest with you, every single dog is a service dog. Is a service or therapy dog. The point that I came to in my personal practice, my personal opinion in life, was that I began looking at people and clients differently and saying, well, hold up a second, like what is this client's why, and how can we help this person connect on a deeper level with the dog? And so it became glaringly obvious to me that in the why category, when people began writing out their why, and it's one of the things that I began asking people to do is before we sign on a dotted line or we decide to get into this business together and work together, write out your why to me. Why are you doing this? Why do you want an animal? How is this animal going to help? And that really taught me that like, people, it's human beings are in need.
Yeah.
And we're getting because we're in need. And so now we're breaking it down and we're beginning to focus on veterans and their specific needs. But really, to be honest with you, the needs are the same for everybody. There are just levels of need and there are levels of service and therapy and categories to the service and therapy that we all need. But really, dogs, more of I began to realize that they're all it's wellness. Dogs are wellness. They're a part of our wellness.
Oh yeah, just like fishing and outdoor activities, a service animal, I mean, they can do so much, but just backing up a little bit to the reasons why when you say, what is your why? Why do you need this? That really makes every single situation a little bit different, right? Every dog is going to be trained differently to the specific needs of the veteran or service officer or
Exactly.
whatever. So that's so let's back up even further. How does Tyson get into to training animals? Like, how do you first get into this is your passion, this is what you want to do? Because I mean, just looking at your resume, some of the people that you train dogs for is pretty incredible. So how do you get into that?
Um, you know, communication came to me as a byproduct of childhood and being in situations and foster and group care, group home situations as a kid that exposed me to different realities. One of the people that watched a little bit younger were some family that farm, and so the tragedy of being uh, in that type of a situation as a young kid. Uh, a lot of many and uh, things that were tangible that I could grab onto and hold on to. And so,
Yeah.
in a way, like when I happened to me, I was displaced from living in the city and moved. And I had this responsibility with animals. We had goats and chickens, wild boars, pigs, all sorts of animals. And I was tasked with taking care of them on a daily basis, feeding them, whatever the chores would be, collecting eggs, milking goats, milking, had to do.
Yeah.
And so in
I
this
hate
process,
to I hate to interrupt you, Tyson, but your connection is just a little bit off. I wonder if you could hop off, get on Wi-Fi, and come back and see if that helps.
What you're saying is so important and you're breaking up.
okay, no worries. Yeah.
So again, Gino, then while he's doing that, let's the whole part about dog. I got a couple pictures of Tyson and just a little bit about him and his 20 years. Let's just when he comes back in, we can talk. But I guess he's been doing this for over 20 years.
He's been doing it for 20 years, and just reading some of these slide decks, there's something like 63.4 million households in the U.S. that have a pet, and by that, 33% of those animals are medium to large dogs. And I mean, if you, I mean, you have a fairly large dog yourself. If
Yeah.
those dogs can't be controlled and in crowded situations, or you know, letting them outside the house if they, I, I have this thing with large dogs, because when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I was basically attacked in the street, and it was
Oof.
like a fight or flight. I have this mild fear of large dogs if I don't know that large dog is friendly or not.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, if you can't, that's why controlling these animals are so important, right? And what Tyson is doing, I think, is pretty incredible. So
Yeah, sure. Going back to talking about that, yeah, I mean, you're talking about my dog there, but we're talking about a lot of different dogs. But with my dog here, it's a big staffy, and that
So
that makes it a little bit more difficult. And we got some our
here we go.
guest back here, but
there
makes
we
it a
go.
little bit more difficult,
Hey guys.
But for
Hey.
me,
Yeah, that sounds a
he's
lot
my
better. Sorry about that.
oh
So I
yeah,
just want to back up
There
for
we
a
go.
second.
Okay.
When
All
you
right.
were
Sorry about
breaking
that.
up, you were saying
So, yeah,
how you
I've been,
got into taking care of a menagerie of animals, which is how you got into
right,
your passion.
right,
Yeah.
right. So on the farm, we depend on a daily basis, and that would mean getting up early in the morning, as I do now, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, heading out as a young kid, um, into the snow, into the ice, into whatever was going on in weather-wise, and then tending to these animals. Um, it became apparent to me really early on that there would be footprints in the snow following my footprints while I was on my way to tend to these animals. So I knew that I was being followed or preyed upon by other animals that were here to prey upon the animals I was caring for,
Yeah.
which in the beginning led to a lot of fear, stress, anxiety around, like, even being in that position, and being fearful of the nature that I was living and working in.
Wow.
And so, but over time, what wound up happening is I began to rely on the animals that I was caring for to give me tips and pointers on how to survive the animals that were preying upon them. And I began to rely on them and learn from them. So whether it was a group of cows in a pasture beside our property, or the horses that would have to, endure attacks from the bears that would come down in the night, coyotes, wolves, whatever. And so I began to establish these relationships, beginning with cows, but then spreading out pretty quickly to the goats and the other animals I was working with. And we began to have conversations. One of the things that I would ask was, like, how on earth do you protect yourselves in the middle in the evening when these animals come down to prey on you? And so in these relationships, I began to learn complex strategies that they would incorporate. And then I begun, like, helping them out and working with them. So they would say that, okay, like, so on a full moon, when the wind is coming off the mountain, that means that we have no attacks tonight. We can smell them coming. We have wonderful visibility. We're not worried about those nights. It's the nights where the moon is not up and the wind is coming across the valley floor, where our scent is being spread up the mountain, and that's when they come down. And so what we do is we form a phalanx with the bulls at the head of the phalanx, and the sows, cows, and all of that, and pups and babes in the middle. And then everything works from within that phalanx until the wind either shifts or the sun comes up. And if we stay in that phalanx and we work in that way, that we're always facing the hill, that they have to come down to get us. They're not going to come across the flat meadows, and they're not gonna come from upwind. They're always going to come it's always going to come from with a wind advantage and a visual advantage. And so that's where I began to learn some of the stuff about, in terms of how to survive, which made me comfortable, but it also opened the door to ask other questions and begin to work in other ways with them. So with the animals that we were working on the farm, it was more about just being safe to be able to be in with them, to feed them or tend to them. And so my knowledge was kind of focused around that. But as the relationships grew, to work on more complex things. And then I also began to try it on other mammals and realize that this stuff actually works. It works wonderfully. And once we learn a little bit about our environment, like they say, like situational awareness is everything. They
Yes,
say
it
that
is.
most of the conflicts that we avoid the conflicts and we stay alive rather than stumbling into them and having to deal with things that we can easily avoid. So that was
Well,
number
I
one.
mean, the more you put yourself into the middle of those conflicts, the more you understand it, and the more you can work with it
That's right.
to achieve the goal you're
That's right.
trying to get to, right? So
But just a moment ago, you were speaking about a paralyzing fear of being attacked or having a
yeah.
negative experience that has stayed with you, right? And so for me, like I was paralyzed, like the entire scenario paralyzed me. The abandonment, being alone on a farm with these people I didn't love or know,
Yeah.
and then having this responsibility thrust upon me, and then having animals coming for me, or in my opinion, coming for me, was enough to paralyze me. But it was really that information and the knowledge that was able to slowly set me free and teach me. Like once I began to understand, then I knew when moose and bull moose were going to come crashing through. I knew before it was going to happen. So then
Yeah.
I didn't have that physiological response anymore. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah, so is that something, knowing that, is that something that you pass on or teach to a service animal? Because I've read stories where a service animal can maybe see an event coming, like epilepsy or
Anxiety attack.
anxiety attacks.
They
They
can
can see
sense
that
it. Yeah.
stuff before it
That's
happens,
right.
right? So how
That's
do
right.
you teach an animal that? It's pretty interesting.
Well, I think we need to. I think we should reverse that. How
Okay,
do we learn from animals? How do we learn this from animals?
okay.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah, tell us about it.
Teach an animal that, right?
Yeah,
Because teaching an animal that from where I stand, from my knowledge base, I believe that all wild animals have this innate knowledge. It's like ancient wisdom and sacred geography in a way. They speak wild language. They live wild language, and so they understand these things innately. They live in a highly stressful, normal type of, like, their normal life is stressful. They're being preyed on or
yeah,
they're preying on, and they have to fight to survive. Yeah. And so learning from them, and by the way, that knowledge is not like a type of thing where they say do this, do that, and that'll be fine, but just in terms of learning, like, wow, when are they nervous, when are they not nervous? If they're not nervous, I don't need to be nervous. There's no grizzly bear coming down the mountain in the middle of the night for my little
yeah,
to eat or prey on me.
Yeah.
Like they could stumble across me and hunt me a little bit, but they want something bigger than me. Yeah.
Well, let me
But
ask
just learning
something.
that when they're not nervous, I don't need to be. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, no, I mean interrupt you. Scotty B, you've been
Yes, sir.
quiet most of
Yep.
this time.
Yep, ma'am.
You got a dog not too long ago.
I did.
How has that made any difference?
Absolutely. There's a relationship there that we.
And why? What was your
Yeah.
why?
Why was why was I just wanted some companionship in the house, really, and just kind of, I don't know, we kind of needed each other, I guess. I rescued him, and he talked to me, he spoke to me when we seen each other, and it was just an instant bond, and it's been that way ever since.
yeah.
So,
And that's not a small dog.
Do you
I mean,
find that you rely on this
oh,
dog for your well-being?
what was that?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry to interrupt. What I meant to ask is do you find yourself relying on this dog for
Absolutely.
wellness?
He's my rock, I guess you could say. He knows when, and again, he's not trained. He's a rescue dog, nothing more than that. And he can sense things. He can sense when I get worked up. He can sense when just earlier today we were having a conversation, and my beautiful soon-to-be bride, he said, "Look at the dog. He's looking at you because he knows you're worked up." And he come right over, pushed in between us, and kind of just, I don't know what it is. He can just sense it. So
yeah,
Yeah. Lots we can learn. Like that any answer that I would give you is going to be based on one or two things. It's going to be based on an organic experience I had as a young child with an animal, or it's going to be based on a case study based on work that I've done since becoming a professional animal handler. But either way, it's been the animals giving the information and then us learning how to communicate with them better, to draw behaviors out of them, or to draw, more importantly, to draw communication out of them. And that's really it. I think that if we, part of the opening to this, kind of the takeaway for me was that every dog is a service dog. Every dog is speaking to us, and every animal is speaking to us. Really, we have the ability to learn from our animals.
Yeah.
And that's just a natural thing if we're open and if we're ready to listen. And that is an organic process that we can dial in a scientific way. We can dial that process in to get specific, unique ends if need be. But that all of that comes from an organic place. We know, as well as do our animals know, so much more. They're tapped into so much more, and as we have the ability to be tapped into, but we don't necessarily tap into. And so when it comes to service members, veterans of PTSD with issues around anxiety and all that good stuff, there is the good news, as far as in my opinion, the good news is that there's a long ways still to go. This is still a pretty new game.
Yeah.
And it's a game that I believe will reap untold the future is very bright. Approaches from an organic and from a real connection oriented place. Some of the people that I've had the privilege to meet and spend time with, or even just hear about and be able to enjoy share their stories a little bit, have really been blessed with unique challenges that require unique connection to be able to solve.
Yeah.
I personally suffer from PTSD as well, and rely on the work that I do. The work that I did, it was a very personal work because it was really happening from inside of me as a little wounded kid. Maybe I wasn't a wounded warrior on the battlefield, but my life was a little battlefield. And so for me, the way that I relied, when I left my home in the morning to walk out into these, animals' habitats, there was something going on. There was an interaction that was going on that was like, oh, I'm afraid of you, or you're large and looming, that turned into I love you and I care for you, that turned into, oh my goodness, you're a mentor and you're helping me. And if I listen, if I open my heart and I listen, I will grow immensely and be soothed and nurtured with your wisdom. And so at the opening to this, when we first began talking, the first thing that I took away from the opening parts of our conversation was that it really, this work requires that we spend a little bit more time getting to know the recipients and really getting close to the recipients of this work, the human beings that are in need of this, so that we, just as we understand that we have our own triggers, all people have triggers, our animals have triggers. There are triggers for nurturing, there are triggers for protection, there are triggers for all sorts of different functions that if we take the time to get to know the person, for instance, and I could start with you and just and dive into what is it that you feel? How did you get that way? How does it affect you? When do you feel this coming on? When do you feel it the most powerfully? Does it happen at specific times of the month? Or is there specific stress loads that you feel? When does this happen? Is this cyclical? Right?
Yeah.
And once we dive in like that, we begin. Yeah.
Yeah, for my thing is very cyclical, around a certain time of year. And it's just that time of year that just is a memory, a reminder of things that happened in the past. But here's a question that I'm going to ask you. These are still animals, and sometimes they have wild tendencies. I have seen in the past where an animal was just untrainable. They
Yeah.
seem nice at a time, but if something triggers them at the wrong time, I've seen them, nip at people's faces when it
Mhm.
never happened before.
Mhm.
So have you ever been in a situation where you had to say, okay, this animal's just not trainable? You know, does that
Uh,
happen? How often does
you're
that?
probably going to be upset with me if I answer. That answer does not actually exist in reality for me. My
Okay.
paradigm does not include that. And I'll share with you the reason why. And it's because we never approached this from a operational standpoint. We've never really had I've never had the drive to sit and observe an animal in like the Jane Goodall approach of like, what would this animal do in a situation? We take an approach of raising and training the animal regardless. So for instance, if again, because I believe that every single dog is a therapy and service dog, and everybody needs it, whether it's grandma, Aunt B or Grandma Mary or whoever it is that needs that companion for whichever reason, it's a wellness therapy service animal. And so we have standards in terms of what behaviors are. And so I understand, I don't disagree with the experiences you've had, but
Yep.
what I would share in relation to the feeling about, well, that dog's untrainable. These are things that can, must, and should be vetted, prerequisite to a dog even being in the home. But that doesn't stand alone. That's not a standalone statement, in my opinion, just for wounded veterans. That would be for like anybody with a baby, anybody with
Oh
anybody
yeah.
that's bringing a large, yeah, right. And it
Yeah.
doesn't
No
really
doubt.
matter because like you might have to go to war and shoot a gun or see some terrible thing, but these terrible things are happening in our homes, guys. Like,
Yeah.
right, they're happening to our kids. Like, right, it happened to you, right? So instead of that experience, which I understand, I know how it gave, how you received PTSD around that. And I get the entire like architecture of the framework of how that happened. But what I don't believe, what I wouldn't subscribe to personally, that dog had been trained or worked appropriately to be in that situation. So did not have child safety etiquette, did not have greeting etiquette, did not have, strong. So its weaknesses, desensitization training. Just think about it. Like, so one of the first things that I think about, people say, hey, would you like to go meet up with this person? This issue or that issue. And some of them are military. Well, the first thing that I think is, my goodness, I'm not going to go get myself into deep water with this military person by myself and leave
Yeah.
myself in a position that I'm going to get PTSD. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I would do with this dog is I would desensitize. I would find out what the triggers are. I would go after them and make sure that we become masters of the triggers as a prerequisite to that interaction. And I believe that if we did that, that experience would never happen to you. There'd be education on your side of it, as well as the dog would have already been through it. So like, how many times can you see and be afraid of an experience that once it's explained to you, you understand it, you have the tools and the language to fix it, and you go about doing so for therapy for yourself a couple times, you will not be in that same place. You'll have grown from that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. So like for my situation, what I was talking about when I was younger, 10, 12 years
Yeah.
old, that was an extreme fight, flight, or freeze response to a dog going after your neck in the middle of the road. So
Yeah.
when I see a big dog coming at me in a hurry,
Yeah.
it may be a friendly thing, but I
Yeah.
still get triggered. That's not something I can control. I still want to try to protect myself because
Gino, you told me that was a Chihuahua.
no, this was a
It wasn't a
it was
chihuahua.
about an
It was an
85-pound
ex-girlfriend or
dog.
something. I don't know. Yeah.
It was about an
Four
85
changes.
pound dog called a German wire hair.
Oh yeah.
Just a massive
I
animal.
know the dog. I know. Yeah. 100%. No, but the thing is that, and I agree with that. Like, so I would say to you, like, would you be shocked to find out that I'm completely allergic to dogs and I have lots of fear of them?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. You know, if it's your story, there's really no story between the difference in your story than there is for Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez sending me their wolf that just decapitated someone's head.
Yeah.
I'm going to be face to face with a multiple 100-pound animal that with a kill, and so I'm not mad. I don't have magic. I have to deal with these things in the way that anybody else does. And I get bit a lot. And so the truth of it is, though, once we learn to communicate, and I've got this saying, people ask me all the time, I can tell you a really quick story that'll probably be helpful as well in terms of large dogs and my fear of them and stuff. But one of the things I say is, like, people ask, like, well, why don't you wear pads for this work? Well, I just don't believe in them. I don't believe in the pads. Not that I don't believe that the pads are going to protect me. It's that I'm not looking for the protection. What I'm looking for is for my communication to be right and for my function and purpose to be accurate under God, and that the things that I'm saying and doing, moving, responding, the telepathy that I'm sending and receiving is accurate. And if that's not the case and I'm getting bit for the most part, then I need to find something to do.
Cool.
I'm not reaching these animals. And I'm able to do a better job. If allowing them to fight on a pad on me is what I need to do to get them, then I'm not there yet. It's not to say that there's something wrong with like bite work and all of that. I'm just saying personally, I have to deal with that fear every day, and I wear that as a challenge in terms of like how I'm communicating and whether I'm actually. I did it with multiple horses today, and a dog I've never met. And the truth of it is, when we're speaking the language that they understand, and we're coming from a righteous place, like an actual righteous place, where we're not just trying to dictate something or have some silly agenda, but really working to better and enhance their lives and enhance people's lives, that language works, and all of the living beings that I communicate with work with to that end. We just don't deal. We don't have those types of issues because in the higher learning sphere, we're not really dealing with the rudimentary lower resonance issues anymore. Once these animals dial in with us and they understand what we're saying, and they understand the intricacy that we can understand them with and communicate with them, and we can serve each other, it just, so one of the dogs that you'll see on my one page is a black Cane Corso. His name is Columbo. He's 145, 150-pound Cane Corso that used to belong to a gentleman. His name is Sam Simon.
Do we have a picture of that, Scott?
He should be on big, black, scary-looking dog. It's the biggest one that's on my page. I should be running leash-free with him on a skateboard. It's a big boy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've seen those pics.
Yep.
And so that dog had a extensive human bite and long history.
Is that him there?
Before we began, hired to come. Pardon?
Is that him?
Yes, that's him on the left. Yes, that's him. Yeah. And so this is a dog that his entire family, he lived quarantined on Sam Simon's property, and then the rest of this guy's family lived on the Sam Simon animal property in Malibu, and they had to keep them separated because of violence. They were attacking people and each other. And so that dog, while I worked with that dog for 2.5 years, Sam Simon wound up taking ill and passing away from his illness, and he willed the dog to me. And so the reason I bring that dog back up is because I had that dog 6 months on my place. I killed that. I worked with that dog.
The audio's horrendous, Tyson.
Yeah, your audio is still going in and out. I mean, it's very interesting stuff.
Is it?
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's good.
Guys.
I didn't mean to go back. Yeah, the last few sentences, because it's important. So Simon left the dog to you. He willed the dog to you.
That's right. And so he wound up willing the dog to me, and I brought the dog home, and I promptly gave that dog to my 4-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And so Fox Network came back to me a few months later, and they wanted to talk to me about why I felt like that was a good decision to bring that dog into my home after an extensive, when I'm talking extensive bite history, I'm talking about a lot of money being paid to people under the table to keep this dog alive and keep this, you know what I'm saying? Like it was an extensive bite history. People got hurt, stuff had gone down. And so when they came back and started, inquiring and the show what was it? Strange Inheritances, which was a Fox show. They want about why that risk would be something
You're breaking up again.
No, he's not. You're good. Keep going.
Oh, can you hear?
Maybe it's us.
And so when they actually came out to start filming, about 2 days into the filming, and the production stopped, and it stopped because the story that I believe the production stopped because there's a nothing burger. There's nothing there. Where the interest was, it wasn't about that. It was a redemption story, and it was a beautiful story about a dog who had given up aggression and fear and had chosen love. And it was about the levels that at the time a 4-year-old who's been raised by me and raised in this system, that this 4-year-old could be leash free with this dog anywhere. And this dog is safe, and a lap dog. And the real story is about saving the rest of those dogs and them all living out the rest of their lives without violence and no history, like no more attacks, barks, lunges, bites, anything like that, just love and leash free. And so they wound up coming back later and shooting and telling a different story, because the story, it had moved on into something more, that we had taken the rehabilitation as if our lives depended on it very seriously, and we had accomplished it and moved into a beautiful place. And I just really feel like Colombo became a therapy and service dog for his dying father.
Yeah.
But all the way from being a dog that needed to be most likely euthanized, probably on the spot in a heinous way, to being an animal that is absolutely able to be there until a man's last dying breath with him safely, and invite strange people in, and Hollywood people in, and Hollywood energy in, and be cool and be able to facilitate. And so, I think that there's really not much of a difference between a person like a Sam Simon or any of these other people out there, and there's not a difference. Like, we all have fears and issues and things that we're going through, and massive challenges and times when we're in need and of help. And so I've just really, that my role shifted from being somebody that wanted to show off techniques and sell fancy dogs to somebody that realized, oh my goodness, I think that there's a deeper purpose to this thing. And God wants me to do this work in a specific way. And God wants me to show up and show out in a specific way.
Yeah.
And that way is about studying the people that I want to help, and being very intentional about the type of help that is needed, so that we can learn better. And again, when somebody's triggered, perhaps this person's trigger isn't a good trigger for this dog. Like, does it make sense for us to understand this before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is this just the type of deal where, hey, you're lucky, you're a veteran, you're going to get a dog, and we don't know who you are, but we're going to do this work and set this dog up for someone we don't know who you are, and we're going to hope everything works? I think that there's much more upside when we're more intentional with it. We take our time with it, and we really focus on what it is.
Yeah. Well, I really, really admire your never fail attitude. That's for sure. Because, I have seen it where service animals have gone back.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that you could find, you find a place for them, no matter what it is.
But you understand the dynamic? Like, are you have you really thought it through, like the dynamic of a service dog going back? Like, have you thought about that? Like, when I see that, like, it means that the service dog was bringing PTSD.
Yeah.
Does it? No, absolutely. But when it comes down to the service dogs bring PTSD, is that improper training of the dog, or is that just not a match?
Or how about we could say that there are a variety of reasons why something will work or not work, but we know through personal, and it doesn't matter, again, service dog for a veteran or a rescue dog for an old lady. It's not much of a difference. Like I don't know anybody that went to go like I used to ask these questions in my classes. And I used to have these JK classes, and I asked, how many of you folks would go out and rescue this type of dog again? And the answer was across the board, 100%, none of them. Not a single person, right? Not one, right? And so these people went out and made an impulse purchase or a rescue or whatever it was. They didn't understand their why. They didn't understand the dog. They brought that dog home, started introducing it to their kids, and maybe it didn't like their kids. It didn't know, right? So back to your point, it's like, it's not to say that certain dogs, I wouldn't be picking violent felons for wounded warriors. That wouldn't be the intentional move. But the truth is, we've done much worse reclamation projects that have turned out to be much more beautiful. But we would really try to pick. So for instance, just off the top of my head, in my personal experiences, like most of the veterans that I've spent time with, they have specific areas where they're not functioning appropriately or normal in their lives, where they're trying to get to something. And so and those are handicaps. I don't like to call them handicaps, but in a way, in some way, shape, or form, there is a lack of something. Something's not working, and so we're trying to fix that. And so we want to make sure that specific weakness is supported. Like it's a tangible thing. When that person goes into that vibe, there's a necessity for a support there. And so if we don't understand what that need is, and I don't mean just on a blank, sometimes he freaks out, sometimes he gets nervous. When? Why? Like, we need to know, like, hey, did you take an Advil before you're coming in and you're asking me to give you this other drug in the ER? Like, what's going on, right? And I've just found that there is more opportunity to dive deeper into the human beings and the human story, and to also raise the animals to just like, so I'm going to go find a dangerous dog that I can start preparing for a wounded vet that's a friend of yours. I'm not saying I wouldn't take a wounded vet's dangerous dog and turn them into a service animal for them. What I am saying is I wouldn't go find a dangerous dog and specifically place that dog in that way. But we're seeing that some of this stuff is happening from time to time, where a dog is not trained up properly, the vet's not trained up, or hasn't agreed even to take on that type of lifestyle, what it takes to connect in that way, right? We have to have we have to have bandwidth and capacity. Those two things, And if we're lacking bandwidth or capacity, we're not going to be able to fulfill this. We're going to have to stop at the lack of bandwidth or capacity and deal with that outside of dealing with the dog. And so we have to, it pays to know where those deficiencies, where those challenges are, and mold them in the animal as well, and make sure they're compatible. Because you know what, for the guy that has no legs and is not up running a 10K, maybe he doesn't need a Malinois.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do a friend, right? And it's okay for the friend to just sit on his lap and love on him, and we can put him on the treadmill for 20 and he's good. Like, he doesn't need all that other stuff and the crazy protection stuff. Does that make sense? And we can pick dogs for people, and absolutely, like, it's just the sky's the limit in terms of if we dial in our cognitive function in terms of what we're doing and really think about it and personalize it. Oh my goodness. Yes.
That's pretty amazing. Have you trained animals for like police type of work and dog sniffing work, stuff like that? Did we lose him?
I do not do that type of per se. That's not forte, but I have helped out plenty of times with those suffering with their dogs in other capacities. So I'm not saying that I'm trained dogs to drug or bomb sniffer. That's not my thing. My function has always been to be a bridge builder between dogs and humans, so that dogs can live better lives while they're here, and humans can as well. And then also some of that protection stuff. I've observed it, and I deal with a lot of animals that have had some of that work on them. I tend to go the other direction and work towards creating deeper levels of connection and safety than the protection. And I also feel that, like, I mean, I don't know. I just, perhaps I just don't have that experience where people are trying to attack me or do something to me every day that would make me feel that I want a dog that's going to run and bite somebody. But what I do feel is I deal with a lot of women that need to go shopping, grocery shopping at night, or single parent mothers, or handicapped young ladies, and they have different needs. There's a client of mine. Her name is Maggie, and she made the most compelling argument, because that an argument that I understood, and so I kind of amended what I was doing based on what she's saying. She just said, "Listen, Tyson, I'm a movie star. I'm a single woman. Men are coming by my house all day and all night long, knocking on my door. UPS people are at my door. Strange men. I'm alone." And she just said, like, I want my dogs to bark. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I want them to know. You know what I mean? It's not that. And so the way that I amended that is I put together a little routine where she had dog beds right close to the front door. And she could bring her dogs leash free right to the front door. She could answer that door, but she'd have 4 or 5 dogs, and at least 2 100-pound dogs leash free standing right behind her. And as long as they stay on their bed, they don't have to growl, they don't have to bark, they don't have to do anything. She'll be to say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to go in my master bedroom and get my wallet and leave you at my front door with 6 dogs and leave," right? So I guarantee you, would be standing 50 feet back from that door, not even coming anywhere close. They wouldn't want to be left alone with these dogs, right? But they didn't bite anything, grab anything, be aggressive in that way, because that training requires responsibility on the human part. And a lot of humans are struggling in that discipline capacity to keep an attack dog safe in a domesticated environment. It's a little different for police who drive around and the dog is locked in the back of a car in a cage, and then comes out for a specific function and then goes back to a dog facility. But the rest of us, we live with them, and they live next door to our next door neighbors' kids and their kids. And so we have to have in my opinion, just a little bit different approach with that. But what I found is when my dogs behave, so for instance, if in some of the work that we do, we train people to take their dog with them to the grocery store. If they have to go at night, to bring their dog and to have the latch on the car, the dog, 1 or 2 dogs in the back of the car, go into the grocery store, do the shopping, come out. They're leaving, exiting with their groceries. They pop the hat in their car. The dogs jump out and sit down.
Yeah.
The person pulls up, puts their groceries back, invites the dogs back in, and home they go. And I'll share with you, we've never had someone attacked while their 2 dogs were sitting beside them and they're loading groceries. Not a single time. Not even approached. Not in any way, shape, or form.
Nobody wants to walk up to those dogs, do they?
Yeah.
And my friend Maggie never had like everybody leaves her front door alone. Period. That's all there is to it. There's not an inviting place.
So, you talk about a lot of that, and Maggie and talking like that, but in your line of work, do you see more of a individuals that maybe don't know how to handle dogs or don't know how to connect with a dog, and you're showing them how to do that? Or is it, I mean, I personally, I find myself, if I'm looking for a dog, I'm looking for a dog that I connect with, that I can, deep in the beginning, we can connect, we walk around, we talk, literally talk, and I get a feel for the dog, and they get a feel for me, and they get, we have a mutual respect. Not everybody does that. Not everybody can do that. So how do you see people, or how do you understand how other people can pick dogs or not pick dogs, and how do you know how to place dogs?
Yeah. So one of the functions that I performed for many years was owning and operating a rescue business. And so in this rescue business, we had a pretty astonishing success rate. We had a 100% success rate with no dogs ever returned.
That's pretty good.
And so So the reason why dogs weren't returned was because humans had to learn to communicate before taking one of my dogs.
Mm.
It's a prerequisite. And so when you're talking about communication with your dog, I'm guessing that you say human words and that you connect telepathically and you send vibes and your dog sends vibes back, that you're able to assess your communication based on his responses and your responses to each other.
Body
Is that
language or the
close?
dog's body language, the way he does things, all of those that interaction is all plays into it. So, but yeah, pretty close.
So that is on your part, and then sensitivity driven on your part. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So, but there are many different ways to speak to an animal, and there's many different ways to understand what an animal's saying to you, right? And so, I have this saying, like, I can tell what type of a person someone is by the way they chew their gum. You guys agree with that? Like, you can just tell so many things about.
Yeah.
And so there are things that we can do. There's body language. When we're talking body language, we need to get a little bit more specific than just saying, hey, I'm observing how this animal looks in this situation. That's cool. But we also can take the responsibility to communicate with our animal and then become the driver to say, listen, I'm going to teach, lead, and guide you in a specific direction. So to say, I don't call it buds anymore, but if I'm going to go down and try to join SEAL team, they wouldn't be observing my behaviors and wondering if I come around to them in a specific way. They'd be looking at me and they'd be guiding and teaching and leading me.
Sure.
And they're guiding and teaching and leading me would be because I would be about to be entrusted with some of the most lethal capability known to man on planet Earth. And so therefore I must be training in order to attain these freedoms and these types of wisdoms to kill and hide and evade and all of that. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. And so this requires waking up and training it, requires someone leading and teaching. So we understand that we can communicate, but this goes much deeper. It goes into, hey, how much do I need you to learn and by what date? If you're coming to me as an 8-week-old dog, by 12 weeks, I want to know that you sit, lay, go to bed, go to crate, that you don't jump, nip, bark, or fight. I want to know that you are becoming independent from me by that 12-week mark emotionally, meaning that you are beginning to separate emotionally from me and go about your own business so that you can have a healthy life outside of my life, that you can help and support my life when I am present, but that you are also fully fulfilled when I'm not. I'll need to know that you are becoming trustworthy. But by the 6-month time frame, I that I have 100% control on or off of leash. Meaning that whatever it is, something that makes you feel or fearful as a dog, that you're willing to take that leap of faith based on our connection and my command. And so in this way, by doing so, and we're using body language, so we're talking about passive and aggressive body language. Aggressive postures meaning any move that we make towards an animal that is not aggressive should elicit a passive response if that dog is dialed in with us. And then also, any move we make away from it being considered a passive posture on our part should elicit an aggressive response. And so we know aggression meaning moving, coming to, it could be a kiss, it could be a jump, it could be just coming towards me. And through using passive and aggressive body postures, we can gauge how connected we are to this dog. The pendulum. A gigantic passive posture means I'm moving away from the dog the entire time, and the dog just begins to circle. But by the 10th or 12th circle, we have found a rhythm, a cadence, and like a little mantra. And that dog begins to circle. And as it does, I begin to turn with it and give complex command. And that dog will fall right into that command because we've created that passive and aggressive ebb and flow of communication together. Not passive aggressive in terms of one's in fear and one's dominant. We have to lose that. There is physicality to training, but training is not about dominance and physicality. Training is about education, it's repetition, it's discipline, structure, love, praise, and also accomplishment. Accomplishment is very important. So it just takes the communication to a much higher level, and then also the responsibility of the animal in life. If we imagine that our children would have to learn the difference between the toilet, the sink, the fridge, the stove, the garbage needs to be taken out, all basic functions. The same goes for our dogs. Exactly the same. They need to be learning the same stuff on how to navigate as well. In order for them to be confident and in a great place in our personal homes and lives, but also in our communities. We're creating ambassadors, right? So we want vets to be receiving shine. We want them to be receiving healing. We want them to be living in love and light. That's the intent. So everything that happens in this person should be a like when I go to the neighborhood with my dogs, the story. There's nowhere they can't go. They're welcome everywhere, simply due to the fact that people understand that they know how to be there. Changes the game.
Absolutely, and
Well, one thing I've learned throughout this whole podcast is if there's veterans, people listening out there that think they would like to try a service dog, I've learned tonight that you have to go in this 100%. You're not going to go get a dog that's fully trained to do exactly what you want to do without, not being involved in that training. And that's part of the program up here in Spring Hill, Florida, that I have been approved for. I haven't taken the next step yet, but it really sounds like, it can't be 50 or 60% effort there. You have to go all in on this or it's not going to work, right?
It's literally raising children, but we're not just so half-baked first responders out there. We wouldn't want half-baked SEAL teams out there.
Yeah.
We want, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's a heavy responsibility. So take that seriously, yeah? And let's do the most with it, because really at the end of the day, also, what's the intention? The intention is only one thing, is to help veterans recover.
Yeah.
That's 100% of the story. There should be no other story.
Right.
No other part.
So
that's it.
Yeah, so we're actually running out of time. This stuff is really fascinating. I could talk about this for probably another hour.
Yeah.
But for me, I have two more questions, and first one being a very simple one is if you could say in 30 seconds, if we had a service member, we had a police officer, we had a firefighter that wants to get a service animal, or what is thinking about service animal, what
exactly
what sort of experience, or what sort of, from your experience, what sort of advice could you give to them?
Well, the first advice that I would give is to do your research. First off, learn about as much as possible about your own afflictions and triggers, and be actively engaged in working on those triggers, while at the same time choosing a dog. I would say be as engaged in your own wellness and health as your bandwidth allows, and be looking for not just a placement, but a match.
A dog that responds to that vulnerability.
Yeah, that vulnerability. Also, listen, if you're recovering, laying on a couch for 6 months, then the match becomes real important. If your recovery is that, could you imagine, imagine the trigger is that you're afraid to go in the dog park because there are certain people that say certain things about the breed of dog that you have. And you already understand that your response, that triggers you in a way that makes you feel a specific way as a veteran, and you're going to have an uncomfortable time, might freak out, and you don't want to go in there, and you're afraid to go in there, right? Does it make sense to make sure that the animal that you're about to have is a really good match to your triggers
Sure.
and a really good match to your affliction. So that that fear is not just necessarily going to go away because it's a PTSD, it's a compulsion in a way, yeah. However, you're so far ahead of the game because of the sensitivity that you brought to it in terms of doing your own work, as well as making sure that the animal you've chosen is only bringing you flowers all the time. So you're going to be healing that because of that behavior. So once I know, like, oh, this guy flies off the handle, this guy gets nervous about, certain threats. Once we know this, then I just want to dive all into that. And I want to find a dog that is also naturally maternal or paternal in those moments. And like you said, like a lot of organic, that you can just feel your dog talks to you, right? But some do and some don't. And so it really, it makes sense for us to like put that work in on the front end, spend time. Like the idea of spending time with 5-6 dogs and not choosing one. I mean, that sounds absolutely wonderful to me. I love the idea of trying out different ones until you find the right one that works for you.
Yeah, like Scott said, Eros is there because there was an instant connection. He knew, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was a long 30-second answer. So I hope, but again, I mean, I do have to say it's fascinating. I mean, I am so in tune to what you have to say here. It's just amazing, amazing stuff. And, we talked really about a lot of the things for us and everything going on, but, you want to talk about something? I know you do you have anything going on? Do you, doing anything here?
Yeah. What's your next steps what's your vision for the future going forward? Would you like to get into more veterans therapy, helping veterans, stuff like that? What do you think about
the way I see my career moving is definitely becoming more project based. Picking and choosing projects that I want to do. So for sure, the continuing work and diving, creating more space and time to take a more committed approach to the work with veterans for sure. I'm raising and selling dogs. Started doing this about 1.5 years ago, and it's become a very how should I say, personally rewarding shift for me, away from focusing on hardcore rescue. So we're raising all sorts of beautiful puppies for amazing people, and we're spending most of our time in that work teaching people how to communicate as usual, but without all the problems. The difference is we've found animals that we want, and we babies, and then we raise them from the beginning. We're just working, there's teaching and raising, so that's really beautiful. And then I'm looking at getting into some sanctuary work as well. Either starting a sanctuary or together in the future. We've got a few things in the offerings coming, some TV stuff and all of that. But all in all, just really like focusing project based on things that are really going to make a difference, things that I really want to do with underserved children in communities, as well as veterans, and some of the stuff with elderly as well. These little service dogs for hospitals and today we're just out in New Jersey. Kind of poking around, and we'll see how things go. I do see another long thing.
Well, it's pretty amazing stuff, and it's extremely interesting to hear the stories. Like Scott said, we're running out of time here, but we could go on for another hour, I think, talking
Well,
about
just
this.
have to have them back again.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
then we can talk about the work that we're doing for seniors,
Just-
because I love that you touched on that, Tyson, because more and more of our elderly, especially in this state, they don't.
Sorry, one of the things I just want to put on the screen while you talk, Jingles, if that's okay with him, and you can tell me if you want me to take it off, Tyson, or not. But I really liked this image. That right there, is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So
great,
go
yeah.
ahead, Jingles. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off. I
no,
wanted to get that on there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we should do it again at some point. And I just think I like the idea of the seniors and animals. I've seen that um, there's a lack of comfort or visitation, and a lot of these people are living alone, and animals just bring so much love to them. So,
Love and joy is pretty
yeah,
amazing. Pretty
it's pretty good.
amazing. So people
Yeah.
can find you, Tyson, at TKTPowerbreeds.com. Is that correct? I think we might
I
have
think
lost.
we did lose him, but I think that's I think you're right, Gino. I think that's what his is
Yeah,
or what that is.
TKTPowerbreeds.com. I think
And he's also got Instagram. It's
Instagram.
TKT Powerbreeds on Instagram as well.
Pretty
Right.
amazing stuff. But hey, for everybody out there listening, still with us, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please, please, please subscribe, share with a friend, leave a review, tell us how we did, or good or bad. Help us reach more listeners. That the more we can have, the easier it is for us to put veterans on the water, and that's what we're going to be doing this month. At the end of this month, we got a pretty good event coming up. It's here in the Newport Richey area, and it is basically Hooks for Heroes. We're going to have there he is. He's back again. We're just closing up. We tell them about your website and your social media, Tyson, and yeah, this event at the end of May. It's the Friday before Memorial Day, May 23rd. We're going to put 20 veterans on local charter captains for an inshore fishing. We're also have the use of the Island Paradise charter boat.
Big catamaran.
Big
covered,
catamaran.
Protected from the sun.
And that, if you ever come to Newport Richey, I highly recommend going and taking a river cruise on this, because Captain Larry on there for Island Paradise Charters, he just knows the history of Newport Richey like the back of his hand.
And
It's
there's
pretty
quite a
amazing.
history here, actually.
There's
Silent
amazing
movie stars, Johnny Cash,
Johnny
Marilyn Monroe.
Cash,
It's
silent movie
interesting,
stars,
yeah.
presidents that have lived in the area. Pretty amazing. But you can find all that information at linesofliberty.org. Look for the Hooks for Heroes event 2025, and thanks for listening.
Can
We
I say
appreciate it.
something?
Yeah, go
Besides
for it.
fishermen, we also, because the Island Paradise, we're looking for families. We're looking for folks that wouldn't normally get on the water because they're not mobile, because this has benches, seats, tables. You're protected from the sun. So bring your families. Come on, veterans, come out for this event, because we can host you and you can have a nice time just floating.
Yeah. Anyway,
And again,
Tyson, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tyson.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
all right, here we go.